Welcome to the Founder Experience, where we're charting the unpredictable waters of startup ventures. I'm Nathan Williams.
And I'm Alex Gutjahr.
When I started my most recent business, so when I started MindSpider in 2017, there were two main things that I needed to learn about. Okay, I needed to learn about supply chain transparency, and I had to learn about how to design blockchains. And they were both very complex things.
Yeah.
Right. And do you know how I did that? How I learned about it? Did I tell you the story?
No, you didn't. But what time was that? 2018
This was
then?
2017. So
okay, sorry. Yeah, then. Okay, I see. Then.
yeah, and at the time, what I did is there was a Washington Post article about supply chain transparency, the problems with it. And so I just emailed everyone in the article, and I went to every event and shook everyone's hand and tried to learn as much as I could about the problems in the industry. But then to learn about designing the blockchain part, I needed to talk to people who had done it before.
Mm-hmm.
And if you call up the CEO of a blockchain company and say, can I talk to you for half an hour about how to design a blockchain system? They hang up the phone, because why would they tell you all that? Right.
I see, yeah.
And so what I did is I started a podcast, right? For the blockchain part. And I had people on my show, which is, it sounds like a great idea. And that's the way I solved it back then. But if I was doing that today, I wouldn't do that.
Starting a podcast, you mean, like we just did?
Yeah, I would start a podcast for fun, but I wouldn't do it to learn all of this stuff. I would do it to meet people, maybe, or to explore. But you don't need to use it to learn complex technology. Recently, I had to learn about new areas of technology that I don't know about, like the fairly complex things around distributed identities, DIDs, about ways of using AI agents in my particular field.
Mm-hmm.
But ChatGPT has all that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, but before we go there, just what I'm interested in, and we can revisit that later as we go, but especially what questions you ask, right? Because I find learning super interesting. And it's not just, I mean, you said you had the podcast and you shook hands, you emailed everyone, but how do you even navigate a topic that you don't know, that's complex, right? What do you even know what questions to ask, right? How do you, like, where do you start, right? Is it like, what are the big topics in your field, or is it like, what are the typical mistakes people make in your field, like these kind of things? I would like to revisit that, and we can do that as we go. But for me, that's where it comes down to in the details, figuring out, okay, and it comes down to questions for me mostly, but what are the questions that you ask to make progress in your understanding of a complex topic?
I'll tell you one thing, Alex, is that the questions that I ask today are very different than the questions I asked in 2000.
That's also interesting.
And I'll tell you why. Is because when you speak to a person, a human being, they are not infinitely patient.
That is true.
When you speak to a chatbot, OpenAI or Claude or whoever, mm-hmm. They are infinitely patient. And if you started a conversation with the CEO of a technical company and said, could you help me understand the basics? What do I even need to know about tech? They would be like, why are you talking to me? Do your research first. But you can ask that to a chatbot, and that's where it's powerful. That, like, ChatGPT and all of the other competing LLMs will hallucinate. They're not great as a pure source of information, but where they shine is they're infinitely patient. They can, for the basics and for telling you what questions you should be asking and what elements you should be considering, that's where they're really good. And so that's why today I would start very different. And I started by saying, okay, I want to look into redesigning my software. What do I even need to consider? From an architectural point of view, I'm not even sure what to think about. And then it starts laying it out for you. And it might be good, it might be bad, but being able to say, okay, here's where I start, here's what I need to read. That's what's powerful.
And is it, okay, just just to get the details. So you're mostly talking to ChatGPT, or do you use multiple LLMs to discover or explore a new topic?
So far, my two big ones or three big ones have been Perplexity, ChatGPT,
Hmm.
and Mistral. And the main reason I switched to Mistral after ChatGPT was because I ran out of tokens during a day,
I see.
and
And
I am cheap.
I see. But for ChatGPT, do you, because I've tried similar models, do you use the back and forth conversation, or do you do a deep research with it?
I'm using back and forth conversation mostly. I'm not using so much deep research because with like I find with deep research, it's like you're trying to get the machine to think for you. But what I find personally as a founder is that I surround myself with specialists. Okay, these are
Yes. Yeah.
people who are really good at what they do, but they that means also that there's not always someone who understands what I'm trying to think through. I'm the type of
Hmm.
person who thinks through things with someone else, like systems architecture, like company strategy, like, and so if I've got specialists who are specialists in their field, they might not understand this other, like the big picture stuff that I need help talking through. And so I often felt very much on my own. But it's not like I need someone else's input necessarily as a founder. What I need is someone who can ask good questions.
Yeah. Like a sparring partner. So you
A
so you
sparring
have an
partner.
idea, and then you wanna just take a step at a time, and then figure out, okay, what's the next thing to explore there, and that's where it really helps. So how does that, how does it work for you? If you like, how many questions do you ask? How long does it take you to explore a topic, or what's a specific process there once you kick off the LLM?
For me, I think I tend to be I tend to be very let's see, I don't need to know every detail. I need to
Hmm.
know it at CEO level, right? And so often, if I spend an hour, I might get 6 hours worth of material, but I'm skimming it, right? Because I need to know how pieces interact. I don't need to know like the deep depth details, right? Um, so I'll often start with something high level that I don't understand. Like let's pick a topic. How I would approach the let's pick a topic that I'm not doing right now. Carbon emissions tracking. We want to solve climate change, right? We want to solve climate change, and so I would go, okay. I'm looking to do a project in climate change. I'm looking to, and specifically, I'm looking to do something with carbon emissions tracking. I'm a software company, and I want to build some sort of SaaS that could address it. Where are some starting points? What are some topics? Then we go through some topics. I would say, okay, well, this one maybe it lists one about carbon calculation, and so I would say,
Hmm.
okay, well, tell me more about carbon calculation. What's involved with it? Are there existing solutions that are good, and what's the problem with them? And so it'll list then good solutions, and I'll say, okay, well, this one looks good. Why isn't it universally adopted? What's wrong with it? Where, like, who's trying it, and where is it at? And so then it'll give me some information, and then I can go, okay, well, tell me about this one. Like, what challenges is that? And so it's always about asking the next level of why. And if I don't have a next level of why, then the next question is, what questions should I be asking in order to understand where a gap in this market is? And then it can come up with more questions to ask, right?
Yeah. And then,
Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah, it does, because I've just been thinking about another example where I tried to explore a topic, but I'm not sure which one it was. But I said it was something similar where I said, give me a curriculum, right? Like if I would go to university for this specific topic, how would you lay it out, right? So you get the high level structure in terms of, okay,
Ooh.
these are the fundamentals. Like, because I'm thinking you can just create your own, like, whether you want to study, but your courses, your learning experiences. And I try to approach from that, right? Where sometimes it's diving right in if I have a starting point for a topic that I want to explore, or I feel like, okay, I want to really just tackle that in a good way. And then I first ask it to come up with the kind of agenda. And then we have the modules that we walk through, right? As I said, okay, let's walk through the fundamentals first. And then I still know where I am in the whole process, right? So I'm usually prone to getting lost in these kind of conversations because it's like a rabbit hole, right? As you said, you can always ask the next question, and then you see, oh, okay, I didn't explore that, and which is fine to just follow your curiosity. But I think you at some time have to know where you are on the kind of map, right? So you know, okay, how far am I in, and am I still on track to learning a specific topic like the way I intended? So I usually try to frame it up front to know, okay, these are the topics that I need to tackle, and then I can always at any time jump out of a branch, if you will, right? So I go down a rabbit hole and I figure out, okay, that's fine for now because there's always more detail, right? And then jump back to the agenda that I've set out initially and say, okay, let's continue with the next topic. And then while you're doing this, you will see how concepts relate to each other, right? You will just revisit something that you've heard before, and it's like, oh, this is how it maps to what I've already learned about, and then trying to work my way through such a agenda. And spoiler alert, I don't get to such a full agenda, right? It's like I feel like, okay, it's good enough, right? Because I usually don't want to be an expert. I just want to solve a real world problem, right? And when I
Yeah.
feel confident enough to make or take action, make the next step, it's usually fine. And then I might revisit it every now and then. And this is one of the challenges there for me to keep track of these conversations, right? I know ChatGPT has these folders, like project folders, which I'm using extensively to find a thread and come back to it. But that's how I usually approach it, and it's getting less over time. And then just popping into the chat and ask, oh, today I discovered this. How does that relate? And then we just chat about it. But it's not as detailed as the initial questions I might explore.
One of the things that I found in doing this process is I noticed at least one way that you can start to detect when the LLM is hallucinating and when it's giving you false information. This is not the bulletproof way, but I noticed it in a couple of things. Because one thing I was doing, I was looking at my competitors, right, and asking how they're approaching a certain problem in my industry. And one of the competitors has very detailed information available on their website on how they do things. And so I was asking the LLM to help me understand it. And that's fine. And then I said, are any of the others doing this? And what doing this other approach that I took? And what it did is it listed a bunch of competitors that it said were doing this other approach. But I know a little bit those competitors, and they're using different approaches. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I know that they're using different approaches. And so the fact that they just list people that are somewhat in the industry is an indication, right? And so then I ask another question, and again it would list a similar cadre of competitors, but I know they're all doing different things. This is what you got to be a little bit careful of. You don't want to trust LLMs for core research and just saying, okay, these people are doing this, especially if it's information that has to be inferred or is private, right? When you're asking them to illustrate concepts or help you understand concepts, you're going to have a much better time than to get facts, because ChatGPT is not Google.
I know. This is what I wanted to ask. For your competitor research, you had some inside knowledge, right? So you knew the answers are not correct. But how, like, that's much harder if you're exploring a topic that you're unfamiliar with, right? Or where there's no information where you can fact check what ChatGPT or one of the others is saying, right? So this is, how would you draw the line there? How do you know when to stop?
I think, well, the first thing is, if you're researching a topic and suddenly you're seeing that that the LLM is giving you confident yet slightly vague answers, that's an indication. So, for example, I was researching on digital product passports, right? And rather than giving me information on exactly how you would construct it, who sends data to whom, how the data gets encrypted. It was giving me sort of generalized sales material
I
when I
see.
was asking very specific, and it was then listing a number of companies, including my competitors and myself, as you, and saying they're all using different things, but then saying it in vague words where it sounded like they were doing the same thing. So that tells me that it's just making stuff up.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. And do you think so? I think most founders should use LLMs, right? I think you would be foolish to not use it to make progress. But are there any fields or questions where you think you shouldn't use it?
I think that you shouldn't use it to make decisions for you. Like I think that where LLMs are really useful is for giving you ideas and options where you didn't have as many ideas and options, where your filters might have missed something really big. Maybe there's something that someone else is doing. Like usually, if I'm trying to go through a problem and I give it to an LLM, it'll come with like four things that I've considered and one thing that I hadn't thought about. And then I will ask it to refine and go through variations on it. So, for example, I was looking at what features I could build on top of my existing platform. And when I did that, when I do that with other people, sometimes they'll come up with wildly, unrelated things. It's
Mm-hmm.
like maybe we should build a crazy feature that's just so different that it doesn't really use any of the previous tech. Whereas I find with an LLM, it will obey the instructions. Like it will tell me it will tell me variants that fit within the box of parameters that I've set. So if I say I'm looking for ideas for new innovation and features that build on this platform that I've built, then it will do that. It will give me ideas that fit within that, right?
Yes, unless you potentially ask it to think outside of the box, right? I often
Or you
try
can
to
also do that.
balance. Yeah, I often try to balance any bias that I might have, right? So I'm like asking these kind of questions. Why would this not work, right? So because I'm usually when I'm thinking about new ideas, projects, etc., I'm always very optimistic and I can see why it would work, but I usually neglect why it wouldn't work, right? So I'm a little bit too optimistic in some ways, also a little bit too pessimistic in others. So I try when I ask these questions, I try to kind of identify the blind spots in the thinking there, right? So this is similar to what you said. What am I missing? Why and then why wouldn't this work? Like in that direction, right? So I get a more complete picture of what I'm thinking about already. So then, and as you said, I agree. In the end, you have to make the decisions, right? It can only be like as a kind of decision template or kind of like a summary where you then figure out, okay, does it make sense or not? And then you go ahead. But I try to get a complete picture of what it is that I'm thinking about there.
And to be honest, I think this is how people wanted to use Google for years, right? This is how people wanted to use Google. They wanted to use it to help me understand a topic or help me think of what I'm not thinking or think of what questions to ask. And Google isn't really good at doing that. It's good at looking up and retrieving information. And that's uh, like for many years, I think a lot of the problem was like I don't even know what to Google, right? Like I'm not
Yeah.
even sure what to search for. And now you almost don't have that problem because you can just go, look, I'm trying to think through like what am I trying to think of, and the LLM will come up with at least ideas or starting points for this. And I think for this reason, like we're seeing people stop using Google entirely almost, right? Like it's crazy.
Yeah, though I have to admit I use it a little bit more frequently recently because they've
Yeah, but you're weird.
Gemini baked into search, right? And often I back in the days you would just figure out, okay, what are the keywords? And that was kind of the art, right? If you use Google, you had to think about, okay, what are the keywords for what I want to get at? So you had an indirection, right? You came with a question, but you didn't ask the question. You figured out, okay, how would Google give me results? Like, what is it? And it was just, I don't know, best restaurant Berlin, right? So you didn't like it was really just you thought about the keywords that Google cares about and ranks, so you get the results that you actually want. And with Gemini, I think that has drastically improved, because now these days, especially if I look for a setting on a computer, something foolish like this, like where can I disable this toggle or that, I usually ask Google first, because it's still very good at retrieving like pages, etc., with these information, and that it shows you a quick summary. And more often than not, I would prefer that to ChatGPT, because Google has the data, right? So, and I'm asking more questions. If I use Google these days, I'm asking full questions, similar to I do it with ChatGPT. So
Yeah.
just to throw that in, I think Google is not that there,
They're not
but
out
it's
yet, eh? They're
yeah,
not. They're not.
not yet big enough. But I use that a lot.
But this actually brings up an interesting thought. You know, why this rise in LLMs, and it's something I've been thinking about recently. It comes down to a question of what does it really mean to know something or to understand something? What is understanding? I know we're getting this is a little philosophical, right?
I see. I see.
But
Um,
but if you think about it, like with traditional old school search, right? You go to Google, go to Ask Jeeves or whatever. It was about I need to understand a piece of information I'm missing. And then I need to find a way of asking the search engine so that it can navigate me to the piece of information that I'm missing. But understanding was almost like everything around it. I know I'm missing a piece, and I need to know what that piece is I'm missing. I need to know that negative. I need to understand the negative space. With an LLM, it can help fill in that negative space for you, right? So on the one hand, that can make you lazy. It can lead to this brain rot an inability to or to become lazy in your thinking. But it makes it much more powerful to fill in that negative space. And I would almost argue that a sense of that understanding something as a person is not just knowing information or having that information, but it's almost like a feeling of confidence around a subject combined with having the information. So you don't understand something until you feel you understand it. I would argue that that understanding is a bit of an emotion, and that's part of the reason why LLMs are becoming so popular in our understanding, because they give us that feeling that there's a person talking to us and explaining it to us, and it's not that I have to look up in someone else's jargon and learn the jargon and learn all of the negative space around what I don't understand.
yeah. Oh, there's so many, so many things. So jargon is really something that we should discuss separately. Also, like when it comes to offers, business jargon, like these kind of things. I have very strong opinions on this one, and I think LLMs can help break these down, which I think is a good thing. But let's park that for later. But then for the understanding, I just wanna say that this can also be a false sense of understanding, right? And I think this is where the danger is. It's like similar to reading
Dunning-Kruger.
headlines. Oh yeah, exactly. Reading, and then similar to reading headlines on a newspaper while you're shopping, right? And just saying, okay, you understood the topic because you just read a headline, which is framed anyway, and then feel like you have an opinion about something. And I think LLMs, like they are just a tool. They help you to the extent that you're willing to use them, right? So if you just ask a question and you get the first answer and I'm fine, I know everything, that's bad, right? But if you are willing to put in the time to really explore a topic, so I think there are two reasons why you want to do this. First, you want understanding for the sake of understanding something, for the confidence you mentioned, and to just more on a philosophical level, like feeling good about learning something, right? That's one aspect. I think the other one is insights to take actions in the real world, right? And I think especially for when you want to take actions, it can be dangerous to just go with the first answer that you're getting, because then you maybe or feel very confident that you understood something, like or you're even prompting the wrong way, in a sense that you're asking us like for a simple question for a complex topic, which I think is what many people would prefer, right? So there's a complex topic, just give me the tweet
Everyone wants a
answer.
simple
Yeah,
answer.
give me
Yeah.
the tweet answer, and like there are usually no simple answers to complex topics, right? But I mean, the LLM is doing what you ask it to do, right? If you say, give me the simple answer, it will try its best to come up with something. And then you feel like this is law. This is the answer. And I think this is another one of the dangers. So as always, it depends how you use it and when.
One of the ideas that I often run with people is I tell them the difference between an expert and a salesperson is that a salesperson understands the solution, but an expert only understands problems.
Correct. That's true.
I think that's a good place to leave it. Thanks for that. And the moral of this story is make use of your LLMs, but don't trust them to think for you.
That's it for this episode of The Founder Experience. If you enjoyed it, do us a favor, hit subscribe wherever you are listening, whether that's Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite podcast app. If you've got a second, leave a rating or a review. It really helps. And you can find more episodes and behind-the-scenes stuff on our website, founderexperience.fm. And if you've got feedback or business ideas that you want us to talk about, shoot us a message at hello@founderexperience.fm. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for hanging out. We'll catch you next time.